Hello, welcome to another Map Business Online webinar presentation. We really appreciate all of the people who come to our webinars and take the time. This recording of this webinar is going to be sent around to everybody who registered. Today we're going to talk about color shading points and map layers. Importing a list of address locations and viewing them on the map is the most popular action for the first-time MBO users. Hopefully we've made that process intuitive, but I thought it might be valuable to review the process and provide some tips along the way. We're going to be looking at a map that I was creating in preparation for our map gallery, and in that process we're going to go through symbolizing and color coding imported data. We're going to do a quick review of the data import process. We're going to do symbol selection. We're going to go over color coding symbols, color coding map layers, the map legend, and color coding territories. So that's the plan. Let's go to the map. Now, what I did was on our website, we have what we call a map gallery. You'll see that listed here. See the gallery? And then if you scroll around on the map gallery, you'll see there's a variety of different maps that you can click on and they'll launch. And you can go in and look at the various layers and how we've used symbols and map layer shading. So you can see map layer shading here, symbols here, symbols there. So there's a variety of ways you can apply these things to a Map Business Online map. This is a good example right here. This is a map on the best swimming holes in America, and you can see even at this level that I used large symbols with a big fat legend because that's what I wanted this map to be about, the best swimming holes in America. I didn't want anything else on there, so my particular approach was just to look at it that way. Now, if we go to this map was a preparatory map that I built in preparation for a map gallery, which hasn't been published yet, and it was about the opioid crisis. And I imported some data and I used some map layers in building this map, and that's what I want to talk about. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the Map and Data tab, and I want to focus on my state layer, and I'm going to turn off a lot of these data layers that I've already brought in. And I am going to just go through the process of importing a data set. So let's do that. Quickly going through it, we're going to browse to where it is. And we are going to grab the dealer data set. It's just a bunch of addresses across the US. I'm going to click next. I'm going to go back one because I want to remind you, I just went through those quickly. That's the button I'm using. This is the option, select file up here that I'm using in the import process. The headers match up to the Map Business Online buckets because they all are pretty straightforward. And then on the address dialog, on the label dialog here, these are all labels. You can go out and grab any sort of column in your data and assign it to a label, one of 5 flexible fields. We have a unique ID included. That unique ID bucket, I should say, should match the unique ID in your data, which you can put in your data. I did just here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each record is unique. It's labeled with an ID. In your world, it could be a customer record. It could be a record ID from a database, or you could, like I did, just put a column and type in unique ID and then type in the numbers down below. That unique ID makes it easy for you to do updates the next time you want to import that data set. So if we plotted this data, so now we've got 11 out of 12 records plotted on the map. You'll see when we go out to the US-wide view, you'll see them all. We're not going to color code right away. That is what we're going to do ultimately here, but we're not going to use this particular pathway to do it. That comes up immediately when you import data. So does the data window. You can see there's a geocoded error down here. That's the red X. This is how well your data geocoded. And you can go in and edit the location so you can fix any problems in your data. I'm not going to do that right now. It takes a little bit of time to do that, and I don't have that. But the point I wanted to make initially is, if I go out to the zoom out to this USA-wide level, you can see all those gray dots. If I wanted to import this data again, I could just hover over that data here on the map and data. Because I have a unique ID in my data and I've imported it through that process, instead of going all the way up here to import it again and having to color code everything all over again, once I get it all set up, I'll just go back and refresh the data or update the data set from file, which if you did it, you'd go back out and you would grab that dealer data set again. Where is it? There it is. Bring that data in. Map Business Online goes through the process of bringing it into the map behind the scenes and doesn't change anything on the map unless there's a new location. And it'll tell you, oh, there were 0 locations updated, or there were 4 locations updated, 3 were deleted, 1 was added. So yield a report. All right. So that's the unique ID, which I think is a nice tip. We've got a bunch of gray dots on the map. Now, we may want to change that immediately. We've got one little point that's opened itself up, and I can close it just like that. So if I want to, I can go into the data window and access the points, the symbol library and the symbol size and color right here. And I could go in and make all those blue. See how they're all blue? Or I could change using my library, and I could just use something completely different. I could make it a black square. And that's for changing all records on the map, on that database, all through, same size, same color, same symbol. That functionality is also available right over here in Map and Data. So if you go in to the edit gear for that particular layer, there it is. So I'll go back to my original blue dots. But what we want to talk about is color coding these point layers. And that can be done either by going through that dialog process that was offered to us as we imported the data, and I decided not to use it. But that process is the same as accessing these 4 symbol color coding options. That's for color code by circles. This is by color code with symbols, which we're going to do in just a second. This would be if you were going to select that data and color code by chart, barcode, or pie chart. And this would be for heat mapping, which I've done a webinar on heat mapping, so I won't be doing that today. Well, we may see a couple heat maps, but we're going to click this option, color code by symbol. We're going to select our data. We are not going to summarize by city, state, county, or zip code. We could, if we wanted to summarize the data by an area. That's not what we're about today. So you can just skip it. You don't need to check that. Now, when we get to this dialog, this is what I really want to focus on today. There's a whole bunch of options in here. The first thing you've got is the data column in your data. So we are going to leave it at sales, but you could change it to state or do anything in here. Region count, there's always a count. Let's do it by sales. The next thing you see is there's a unique value function. You can color code your data by absolutely incremental unique values if you want. That means that the green dots will just represent those records that have $806,000 values there. That's not what we want to do here. It's rare that I would utilize that, but that's there. The exclude values will let you clean up your data a little bit. If you've got weird zeros or quantities that are in the negative numbers and you just don't want to include those, you can exclude them using this particular little formula thing. The ranges. A range is 0 to 150, let's see, 1,579,000, that number there, 1,579,000 is a range. This is a range. And we've got 5 ranges that we're going to color code by. You could arrange ranges up to 100 ranges, which I think is a little bit much for most of us when we do a business map. For most business map applications, I would keep this to 3 or 4. I usually use 3. I don't like to get into a lot of complicated maps. You want your map audience to get your range pretty quickly when they look at the map. They don't want to be spending a lot of time trying to sort through what all those ranges are. Once you've decided on the range, you can go in and adjust the values. So if we wanted to just start at, let's say we wanted to start at 1,000,000, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and make it a reasonable number, 2, 3, 2.5 million, 2.501. So we're keeping that sort of logic moving forward. 1, 2, 3. And then what I'm going to do before I get into coloring and sizing and all that stuff, I'm just going to click done, and I'm going to look at my data. Okay, I've got 2 different colors represented on the map. One's blue, one's red. I'd like it to be a little fuller than that. So let's go back again. So you can always go back and just readjust. Map Business Online remembers what you did. It's just a few clicks and you're back to it again. So let's change this level here. Let's make that 3 million. Let's make sure we get the right number of zeros in there too. We'll make this 3, and we'll make this 6.5, which means we've got to make this 6.5. So think it through. Try different values that make sense for you until you've got the breakdown that you want. And my breakdown includes a green dot here. I wanted to have it spread out. Okay, back we go. Now I want to think about the color shading and the arrangement, the ramping up. So we've got these incremental adjustments here that you can make. You can adjust the symbols like we looked at before. If you go all the way up to the top, you've got the ability to bring in custom symbols. So wherever you can access the symbol library, you can go all the way up to the top, click Manage Custom Symbols, and import a little JPEG. That's what all these are, of a logo or a snowman, whatever you want. So you can bring those in. That takes 20 seconds, which I don't have time to do in this webinar. Then once I've picked my symbol, I can actually change my symbols and use this copy symbol function and change the symbols all the way across. So if you had like 100 ranges there, that makes it easy in terms of assigning those symbols. Again, I want to stick with the balls. I'm going to copy across. I could copy the size in a similar fashion. So I can do 35% all the way across. What I typically do for my style of mapping is I would take the low dollar value and I would make that a subdued color like gray, and I would make it a smaller size like 25%. And then I would move it up. We could make it orange, and I would make it 35%, and then the red I would make maybe 50%. And then I would go back and click done and say, now how does that look? And so you have a little bit of a size differentiation there. Gives you some ideas in terms of how you can manipulate it. We have the ability to ramp sizes automatically. So if you decided you wanted to ramp between 35% and 150%, you click ramp size like that, and you could even select a color scheme and let Map Business Online randomly assign it. You could make it gradations of a shade, right? So you could go in, see how it's got gradations of a shade there. Let's just look and see what that looks like. Get it? Big, large green dots. Look, there's a blue in there. What does that mean? Let's go back and look. So instead of gradations of blue, there is a symbol on there. We've got some data on there that evidently has no symbol associated with it because it's out of this range. We can get rid of that. No symbol. Now we go back and all is green. These are the kinds of things you can go back and toy with until you get it the way you want it to be for your map audience. Keep in mind, the people in your audience, you could have a few skunks in there that love to poke holes at a presentation. You could have an executive team that's obsessed with accurate data. You could have a team of engineers that thinks they can do everything better than you. Don't set yourself up for, you know, some sort of presentation nightmare by putting, you know, something in there that is going to invite criticism. So just my words of wisdom based on worlds of experience giving webinars with webinar software that always befuddles me. Okay, so if you were to bring in data, that's how I would symbolize it. Now, I would then make sure my legend was up and running. So I'm going to go to my edit legend function here in map and data. I'll show you where that is again so you can see legend time. We go to the edit map properties button, edit legend, show map legend. So you've got to have that show legend on. And then we can look at what we've got here for our labels and update the legend. Make your labels clear, business related, avoid things like sheet 1, names that come in with data that you've imported. Clean it up, consolidate. Let's see, we'll just put sales up here. Dealer sales 2018, update that legend, and there it is. So now you've got a chance to kind of look at your final import and how you've color-coded everything. You can sit back, take a look at it, look at the numbers. Does it all make sense? Put your mind in the mind of some of your cohorts and see how they're going to react when they see your map like this. The other way you can color code is by color coding by the actual state layer or by any map layer, whether it's county, city, state. In this case, we've got state on. And I'm going to really look at this, I'm going to show you this drug death data set that I brought in. So I imported drug deaths from opioid overdoses. And I color-coded these across the US using a black dot, a red dot that's a little bit bigger, and then I used a symbol from our symbol library that's got an arrow, in this case pointing up with red around it. I liked it because it had an indicator of emergency crisis, plus it was a growth indicator. So the deaths are rising and they're large. And you can see where the deaths are happening. Now, I could describe that drug opioid death issue that way, or I could go in by the state layer. Up here we can do it. We can also do it down here. You can click that edit gear, click color code map layer, and you access the dialog box, which is the same dialog box when you click color code map, choose state, and there it is again. So either way, you can access that color code map layer. Choosing my drug death data, I do not have it turned on over here. I've got it turned off, but it's still there for me to color code. I've got the unique value and the exclude value option here. I've chosen the death total. I'm going with 3 ranges, and then I've arranged my ranges 50 to 500, pretty classic, 501 to 1500, and 1500 up to about 5000. You could just go in and make that 5000 if you wanted to, instead of being exact. I chose 2 pastelish lighter shades and then a red shade that was more of an emergency view, and then I color code it by state. And I felt like if I was going to show deaths by state, this is how I would do it versus the point layer. But this particular map I was working on wasn't going to have enough viewable real estate to make that state layer have value. So I decided to turn off the state layer. I had a county layer that was by household income. So I was using the same function here to go in by county. And in this case, I accessed our demographic data by medium household income. So that's included with Map Business Online. You just click to drop down to the demographic data as opposed to data that you've imported and go through the same sort of scheme. I chose 4 ranges and I set up my values like that with these colors assigned, and this is what you get in the background here. Now, because I've got a whole bunch of other data sets that I brought to bear on this analysis. And again, this was sort of a practice sketch that I did for a map gallery. My legend is pretty busy, and my map sure is busy. It's way too busy to have a USA-wide view of all this information, have it make any sense. If I brought that before some of the CEOs and presidents that I've worked for in my day, they would have thrown me out of the room. However, if you zoom in by region, the map actually doesn't look that bad. So if it was a regional view on the opioid crisis, then it starts to make a little bit of sense. And I think that the drug death data layer actually has a little bit of value, where it's showing the states that are rapidly increasing and the ones that maybe aren't so much. We could differentiate those black balls in order to make those show out. Like I'm thinking of this just as we're talking here. I could go in. Nope, sorry. Color code data set. Color code with symbols. Again, I'm accessing it now over here as opposed to up here. We'll get to the same location. Skip the summary. I could go in and change that to be black and red triangles, just to differentiate from the other. Let's see how that looks. Maybe a little better. I've still got Walmarts in there using a triangle too. So it might even make more sense to use another symbol there. These are the kinds of things that you want to think about as you make your subjective map. You're thinking about what your style is, what your particular presentation requirement is, and how that map should look. If we moved back over to the map gallery, the map that I ended up with is this one. So I've got the Walmart locations within 3.5 miles of a hospital. Specifically up here in New England, I did a market analysis, put a circle of 3.5 miles around every one of those dots, and was able to show the black triangles that had a Walmart store and a hospital. So this is a relationship between Walmart stores and hospitals where we might have a cat jumping up on our table. I just put the cat on the floor. Where we might have people shooting up in a Walmart parking lot and wondering about their chances of survival or getting Narcan based on the proximity of a hospital. Relevant? Yep. Sensible map? I don't know. But that's going to be in our map gallery, and you can see how I thought through what was important in terms of the background layer. There's that at-risk population. I did a calculated data column to look at my ages 15 to 65, give a sense of population, and then some of the additional data layers that I was able to bring in regarding hospital availability. So those are things that I thought about while building this map. The background map layer that I chose to use is the National Geographic layer. You can see we've got, our typical street layer. It's a little brighter. I just didn't think it was appropriate for the subject. I liked the National Geographic layer because it had subdued shades and hues. And consequently, I used, some pastel light colors for that background at-risk population map too. Different people might approach it in different ways. If you look at our list of map gallery options here, you'll see in some cases we're using satellite data in the background. You can go into any of these and kind of study them. There's no background data here, no background data there, just to focus on income only, or here to focus on state tax rates. So, again, this speaks to that idea, when do I use points, when do I use a map layer to color code my data? Well, in this case, the map's about income by state. So it's kind of a no-brainer to color code your data by the map layer. Whereas US-wide farmers markets, we're going to have a lot of data points. It might make more sense to build somewhat of a dot density map with a lot of dots that depict where things are happening. So again, the map gallery's got a lot of that information in there. You can utilize it to get a sense of how your maps might benefit from a different approach. Heat maps. You got heat maps happening right down there. If we look at a territory map that I've got set up here, this is a heat map of sales. So we've imported that heat map data, and I've used the heat map button right there to go through, grab that particular data count, and just color code it on the map by heat map. The territories themselves can be color coded just like states or other map layers. In this particular map, I've got territories rolled up into regions and divisions. So I can uncheck my region and my division and just focus on territories, and you'll see, because regions and divisions bring their own color shading to the issue at hand here. And you can see if I went in and clicked that edit gear at the division level, I'll do that again, edit gear, division level, transparency under general, if I make it opaque, your divisions cover everything. You really can't see what's happening at the region level or the territory level. So when you improve that transparency, when you increase the transparency, it gives you more information about what's happening behind the divisions. And the trick is to set that at an area, at a level that allows both divisions, regions, and territories to say something to your map viewer. Again, that's a subjective choice on your part. Regions, I've got those set at transparency 40%. If I went to opaque, the regions trump everything. And then if I just get rid of the regions, now I've got my background map. I should say my map is showing territories, and they're color-coded right now in a scheme that's based on shades of green. So let's just go in and click the Edit Map Layer properties, color code my territory layer. What are you going to color code it by? You got some options. In this case, I've used my real zips data that I brought in, pharmaceutical locations that are in each territory by count, and that's what I've color coded my map on. I could go in and say, well, I want to do it by demographic and population so that I'm fair to the salespeople, and I can go in and change all of my numbers here to arrange them in whatever scheme I think is most appropriate, and apply a color scheme. And now I've got a variety of different colors that represent population. These are all different ways that you and your company can use maps to present your particular mapping challenge. Go to mapbusinessonline.com, ask us questions, send us examples of what you're doing with your work. Tell us things that you've found about your business through mapping. We'd love to hear about it. Thanks very much for taking the time to watch this webinar today. We greatly appreciate it.